Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make Jacob's Ladder. At least this was titled Jacob's Ladder from Grandmother Clark in 1932. But in 1929, it was referred to as the hourglass or the railroad crossing, or in the World's Fair in 1933. So you know what I've discovered? When I use this encyclopedia of pieced quilt blocks, it's really interesting to discover one quilt block can have a variety of, can have a variety of different names depending on the year. So today, Jacob's Ladder. Hello, I'm Wendy J. Haney, and I'm here to show you that quilting does not need to be intimidating. Quilting is such a wonderful life habit, hobby to have, and I want to share it with you. So let me show you how to do this. So here we have it. Here is Jacob's Ladder. And what you're going to discover is most quilt blocks, you just need to look at them and kind of pick them apart of the components. If you look at this block, this is really a 4-patch. Here's a block, here's a block, here's a block, and here's a block. 4 patches. Each of these is identical. I am going to work with an 8.5-inch unfinished block, which means it's 8-inch finished, so each of these has to be 4 inches finished. Therefore, they're 4.5-inch unfinished. What do we have here? Well, we can break it down even further. We have 2 4 patches, 1 in each corner, and we have 2 half-square triangles. Well, guess what? We know how to make those, right? Exactly. All you need is, for our half-square triangles, you need 2 5-inch squares. You need a 5-inch square for each side of your half-square triangle, and these 2 5-inch squares are going to give you both of these. So that's very nice and handy. Now, if you're going to do more than one block, like I am, I plan on making a baby quilt with this, so I'm going to need a lot of these. So I'm going to use the method that's shown up here. My husband's going to put a link here somewhere that shows another video I have to make it, shows you an easy way to use a 9 3/4 inch block to get you 8 half-square triangles. It's super simple when both sides, that all of your half-square triangles are the same pairs of fabric. Okay, so we can do our half-square triangle. Let's do that first. Well, actually, no. So we need our 2 5-inch blocks, 1 of each color. Then for our 4-patch, we are going to use Deb Tucker's Studio 180 4-patch square-up ruler. It is super easy. It means I don't have to think about what size strips, how am I going to trim it? Nope, super simple. So in her instructions for her ruler, it says if you need a 4.5 unfinished block, cut your strips 2 3/4 inches. And so I have my 2 strips that are 2 3/4 inch cut, and those are going to be used to make my 4-patch. Okay, we're going to set those aside, and we're going to make our half-square triangles. So take one of your blocks on the back, and that, and we're going to draw our line right down the middle, corner to corner, on whatever block makes the most sense that you can see your line. And then you're going to put right sides together in your 5-inch square. And I like to pin, because then we're going to take these to the sewing machine. Oh, that's a needle in with my pins. So we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side of that line. Do not sew on that line. Sew a 1/4 inch on either side. And then we're going to end up with our 2 half-square triangles. back from the sewing machine where I sewed a 1/4 inch. I don't know if you can see that with the light. A 1/4 inch on either side of my line. And then I just grab my little bit longer ruler and cut on my line. And then you usually just press to whichever darken. Both of mine are pretty light, so I'm going to press to the printed fabric. There we go. And of course, once you finger press it, you're still going to want to give it an iron. Okay, so now we're going to take this and we're going to trim it up, because the 5-inch block, 2 of them together, right sides together, cut this way, will give you more than sufficient room to then trim it to what we need for a 4.5-inch block. So, key thing is get your ruler on there. I'm using an OmniGrid 6-inch ruler, and I get my diagonal lined up on my angled seam, and making sure here's my 4.5 inch that I got plenty of room to trim all the way around. Okay. There we go. And flip it, and in this time you've got your angle again. Your 4.5 is going to be right on the edge of the fabric because you just made a nice clean cut with that. Okay, there we go. Now I have a 4.5-inch block, which is exactly what I need for my corners. And this other one I will trim up as well for the other side. Okay, now we're going to work on our 4 patches. We're going to use, clean up my mess here, we're going to use Deb Tucker's from Studio 180 4-patch square up ruler. It just makes it super simple in knowing how to cut your fabric and trimming it up. So needing a 4.5-inch unfinished block, the ruler, the instructions tell me inside there's a grid that says for a 4.5-inch unfinished block, cut your strips of fabric 2 3/4 inches. And so that's what I've done. I've got 2 pieces of fabric, my brown and my print, that are both cut with the fabric 2 3/4 inches wide. And all we're going to do is we're going to put these together into, we're going to put them right sides together. And I like to pin them to keep them there. Some people will just take them to the machine and gently feed them through so that it keeps the edges together. So we're going to take this to the machine and stitch a 1/4 inch seam, as we always do when we quilt for the most part. Stitch a 1/4 inch seam, and then we're going to come back and we're going to cut this strip in half, and you'll see what I'll do with it next. Now that I've sewn my 2 strips together, I've already gone to the ironing board and I pressed them to the dark side. Press to the dark side. And then I like to, basically we need 2 of these. We need two strips of these. So what I do is I just kind of fold it in half and get one end kind of that's going to line up, and then I finger press the other end, open it up, find that finger press, and cut it. I put my line on a ruler on the seam, and I cut it. This does not need to be exact. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this. We're going to flip this, so we're setting one side of the strip. We're going to flip it so it is opposite. So as you can see here, I have one strip where my brown is on my top and the other strip where the brown is on the bottom. And I'm going to put these together. So they're both, the seams are now pressed opposite. So what I like to do is just get those seams nested. And then I kind of flip it open like this, and I just keep an eye on the seam as I kind of put it together. And that way, I'm keeping those seams because we want these seams to be nice and nested. So I just kind of do that to keep it straight. Because otherwise, if you do it just on the end, a lot of times the middle is a little wonky. Okay, and I'm going to shift mine down a little because it's closer accurate there. All right, so now open that up, press that. Okay, so now I am going to, let's see, now we're going to subcut this into 2 3/4 inch strips, subcuts. So the same width that I made the strips. I have to trim this so I get this one end straight. Actually, I'm going to do it on the other end. I'm going to cut off this this straggly end here, and I'm going to use another ruler to sit on the seam so I can keep that straight there. So now I'm giving myself a straight end to work with. And once again, the instructions from Deb Tucker, the 4-patch square up is going to give you these exact instructions. And I like to just leave my strips there and just move my ruler down. There's the last line I cut. Keep my line on my seam. And I need 2 sets. I need this 4-patch and this 4-patch. So basically, I need 4 of these subcuts. So normally I would go and cut all of them right away, but I don't want to waste your time watching me. Whoops, there we go. Those moved. So I only need 4 of these. So we're going to get 4 of them cut so I can show you what you're going to do with them. Now, when you do this, you really do, I'm going to move that aside carefully. You want to keep these together. So yes, I kind of shoved these out of the way a little uncarefully. So I'm going to make sure they're still together nicely. Just leave them together because basically this is exactly how you need to sew them. So I just go back and I put pins and I double check that my seams are matching. I'm going to put pins in these. Then you're going to go to the sewing machine, and it really doesn't matter which side you do your seam in. I just happen to always seem to do mine on the left-hand side. So once you have them pinned, you're going to go to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch on one side of these strips. And guess what you're going to end up with? You're going to end up with 2 4-patch blocks. Now, I was wrong. You really only needed to do 2 2 3/4 inch subcuts. Because when I got done, I ended up with 4 patches, and I only needed 2, at least for the single block. So what you end up with is, here's your subcut, and you've got your seam sewed. You open it up, and this is the perfect time to just twist that seam to get a little twist in there. You get your pinwheel in there, and finger press that. So one side goes one way and the other, and then we give it a really good press because you want it pressed well before you trim it. Then we grab the 4-patch square up ruler and you go to the side that is for 1/2 inch ones. So because the finished size is 4 inch, this has a 4 inch circle in the middle, and then it has cutting lines that are 1/2 inch. So my 4 inches in the middle, and it has dotted lines that I want to line up with my seams. Get that nice and straight there. There we go. And then you'll see a 4.5 inch here. And make sure if everything's right, you'll have room to cut here off to square up your 4.5 and here. And if it's not doing that, then you might be using And there, I just twisted it, doggone it. You might be using the wrong side of the ruler. Okay? And then you turn it around and you do the same thing. Get your 4 in the center, line up your dotted lines, and trim at your 4.5 inch. And the instructions for the 4-patch square walks you through all of this, which is another reason I love using the ruler for my 4 patches. Wow, got just a little hanging thread there. All right, so now I ended up with 4 of these, but I only need 2. So now we have that. We have our 2 4 patches and our half square triangles that we did before. And make sure you get them twisted the right way that you want. There we go. So all of my printed fabric is in the middle, and I'm a little off here. I've got my tight camera tight in. Okay, so there we go. There is my block. My 4 patches and my half square triangles. Now, all you need to do is flip those over, and you're going to take it to the sewing machine and sew there. So I am going to do that on this one, and I'm going to pin it, because the last time I went to the sewing machine, I had the pin side wrong because I twisted it. So it's always good, in my opinion, to pin it, because otherwise you'll have a tendency to go to the machine and think you know which way it needs to be, and doggone it, it's backwards. Okay, so I'm going to pin that, and I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and then we are almost done. Well, and my fingers, there we go. I'm going to take these to the sewing machine and get those finished up. Okay, this one I've already finger pressed and press that, open up this one and get that, and I finger press to the one with the lace seams, which is my half square triangle. Do that. So there we go. Then make sure you put it together the right way. Now the last thing to do is take that and put it on top of that, making sure your center here is nice and nested, because that's the one part that is going to need to match, because you're going to have that little square in the middle. So you do this, and everything should be nice and square, and then you take this to the sewing machine and stitch a 1/4 inch right there. And guess what? When you're all done, this is what you're gonna have. Yes, it's all set. And then what you do is pinwheel the middle as well. Press on either side and get your pinwheel in there so it's nice and neat. And that is really all it takes to do that. It is super easy, and I am looking forward to using this in a baby quilt that I need to have done. Oh, what? I'm lucky. I've got about 6 months to get it done. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning how to make Jacob's ladder. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single video I published, hit the subscribe button below and then hit the bell icon, and that way you will be notified whenever I publish a new video. But you can also find me over on Facebook, facebook.com/Wendy, the initial J, Haney, or I have a Facebook group for those of you that love quilting, needlework, books, wine, and wellness. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/lifefulfilled. The name of the group is Life Fulfilled - Quilting, Needlework, Books, Wine, and Wellness. You can also find me over on my website, wendyjhaney.com. I will be doing more blogging over there eventually, as I get more of my videos done. I'll be blogging about those. But also, maybe you see some things that I'm making here and you're going, ooh, wow, I just don't want to make that myself. Well, a lot of those products will end up over there on the website that you can purchase for your friends and family. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you watching.